I'm one of 3, or actually of 4, or maybe sometimes of 5, or it's a group that is growing and growing. But Harrison, Pierre, and me formed since 2006 a design team, a group of designers who work under the name Open Source Publishing. We formed this design team because we were interested in, or are interested in, software. We are interested in design. We're interested in how these two things come together. And so we were intrigued by possibilities of free software to actually see how we could work differently than we were used to. So I start with some design samples, some of the things we've made over the last year. A label for a record done in Inkscape. An invite for an exhibition, a weblog for a cultural organization in Flanders, a website for the Fundació Antoni Tàpies in Barcelona. This work's still going on. Something really different is a public artwork in Amsterdam. Also very small self-published photocopy editions. Contribution to an art magazine, Open. So I try to talk about this changing ways of working, and it started actually with understanding that the kind of work we were making, working for small cultural organizations, working for squads, being involved in copyleft activism, feminism, it was a really strange disconnect between what was happening on our desktops and what was the work we're actually making there. So what we started to do is literally experiment. At the one hand, learning how to install something else, which is kind of strange because we were so used to using our Macintosh with the Adobe suite installed that we didn't know that anything else existed. There was other ways of working. So because it was sometimes really boring and sometimes we felt very strange, we started to organize what we called print parties, which was just gatherings at moments we were finding new stuff. And we would invite all our colleagues and friends to say, okay, this is what we're doing, look. And usually this was kind of exciting environment. So also to try to find a sort of performative way of doing things, like to do the command line in like the booklet, the red booklet we just showed, is one of the things we then make the imposition, you know, to put page 1 in front of page 16, and so that when you fold it, it works out. So we made recipes to do that with command line tools, which is kind of a bit over the top, but at the same time quite exciting to see how then a process breaks up in different elements and of converting from PDF to PostScript and back again. And it's kind of funny because then, of course, in the end, when the printer starts to run, it's like big applause because you've done something that normally would be just one click of a button, but suddenly becomes a kind of heroic moment. It's very interesting to work with these kind of tools, but it's by no means perfect. But actually, we're not looking for, let's say, the carbon copy of what we came from, but we actually enjoy these differences.
So you have Mute, which is the print magazine produced quarterly, but a couple of years ago we looked to move our publishing model over to being a kind of more, a more web-orientated participatory publishing model. Mute for a long time has had a big interest out of its editorial coverage of open source and independent media practice and independent cultural practice. And in 2004, I think, we started Open Mute, or it might have been 2002. Anyway, some time ago, too. Started Open Mute, which is where we actually looked to look at supporting the cultural and activist and communities that were might need web publishing tools, might need open source desktop or design tools. So our kind of interest has been long term. And then this, finally this year, earlier this year, we'd been seeing that open source publishing group were doing these things with Scribus, and we were interested, and we thought, okay, we have to we have to try this out ourselves. So the process that we started, I think, in February or January of this year, was that they would shadow a production copy of the magazine. So when I say shadow, they would actually just do a copy version of the magazine in Scribus. So they build up the style sheets, follow the templating, and that all seemed to work pretty well. Did that work pretty well? That worked pretty well, yeah. And then, so we get to the end of the shadowing, and then we're like, okay, so well, I will go over and visit OSP in Brussels, and we'll do a handover, and you'll kind of teach me about the trials and difficulties and the quirks and how you put stuff together. So I leave OSP and I come back to the UK, and I'm ready to do the production. And we did actually find that it was a very reliable tool. No greater number of system crashes than when you use any other complex layout program. It had some nice assets in terms of how you could manipulate vectors and the like. In a certain sense, though, slightly different from, say, how GIMP or Inkscape are. In terms of the GIMP and, from my kind of reading anyway, GIMP and Inkscape are kind of clones of the tools that we're used to using. You know, they put the menu items in the same place, they use the same structuring, so that when you move to it, it's all just quite comfortable and you kind of know where things are. Whereas Scribus is a bit more quirky. This is what is happening, I think, in terms of how open source programs can make themselves acceptable to the designer or the user, is they mimic what people are used to. Like OpenOffice is Office. I mean, it's just this same thing. And in relationship to the desktop tools and the kind of design issues and the challenges and the new opportunities that are there in terms of open source and print and the like, I'd come across this technology called print on demand, which is, for us, is a print on demand book technology, which means you can, if you generate a PDF file, you can send that PDF file to the printers and they store that, and then they can generate a book, but only having to print runs of one or more. So anytime you want to order a book, then the books are printed when you order them, rather than making a large, single book order.